So let's get to that story. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, we hate it when we are supposed to be the ones who are giving you the news. When we become the news, it's not so cool. So, but in any case, I see that even Sweden is now reporting on it, a story that was on Twitter effectively, where our own Tabane had tweeted a reaction basically to what was coming out of the state capture inquiry yesterday from the testimony of Phumla Williams as she related her experiences with the former Minister of Communications, Faith Muthambi. To sum it up, JJ had tweeted, "Faith Muthambi, this is a horror show." That's a direct quote. To which Vick responded and said that, "But you used to work for Faith Muthambi when she was a communications minister, bro. Didn't you set up that huge advisory panel for her, the one I resigned from in brackets, and write those ridiculous opinion pieces in her name? Weren't you advising her?" Then that was the tweet by Vick. All right, so let's get to the point. I mean, it obviously seems to, given the context in which all of this comes out, it casts aspersions as well about what work JJ Tabane did or didn't do for the communications minister. So let's, we brought both gentlemen on. Let me start with you, Vick. Good afternoon.
Hello, JJ and TT.
Fancy to be meeting you under these circumstances. I would have thought I would have rather had a different conversation with you. Alas, never mind. Let's have it out a little bit. JJ is listening in, by the way. Chris, first of all, I mean, what was the point that you were making? You was almost, I mean, if I didn't know better, I would suggest that you were suggesting that this JJ was some kind of, a lieutenant for Faith Muthambi.
That's exactly what I was saying. And the reason I did it, TT, is, when I saw JJ express his fake horror at Faith Muthambi, for me it was a bit like Lakela Kaunda expressing fake horror at Jacob Zuma. I mean, JJ was central in Faith Muthambi's communications machine from mid-2014 probably till about mid-2015. He was the one who approached me and a range of other people about the National Communications Task Team, as it was called. He was the one whose company was getting paid more than R1 million, according to Brand SA, to provide secretarial services to the National Communications Task Team. He was the one who used to tell us about the opinion pieces that he was writing for the minister. So unless he was lying to us, he's not being completely honest now. And that is my concern. I mean, I think if one did something in 2015 that you're not particularly proud of, own up. I'm sorry. I know better now. Maybe I shouldn't have done it. But to try and pretend some sort of ignorance about what was going on when JJ was very clearly at the center of the communications machine, to such an extent that there was a real breakdown with GCiS, with Brand SA, and even with the interministerial task team that was headed by Jeff Radebe. That's the extent to which this team, sort of headed by JJ, parachuted into GCiS, into the minister's office, and started running her communications machine.
All right. I mean, okay. Let me do this and bring in JJ right away, and then I think JJ, thank you so much, by the way, for coming on. And I suppose a good starting point would be to clear up exactly what the nature of your engagement with the minister was.
Yeah. I wish I could take that as much credit as Chris is giving me for any breakdown of communications between the minister and whoever reported to her. The reality is very simple. I run a business, a communication business. I was approached by the minister when she was appointed to say, please come and help us to see how we integrate all these things that are now going to report to her. And for that, I approached people like Chris, as he correctly points out, to say, look, let's assemble a task team. It was a very big task team because it had about 12 subcommittees looking at all matters from broadcasting to communications and media liaison. His job was simple, to give government recommendations of how it can improve its communications. It actually completed its work and gave that report in 2015 to Minister Muthambi, who did not bother to implement it or anything like that. It went through Brand South Africa because I was already a consultant there with my company with Brand South Africa, so it was easy to to get Brand South Africa to house that work. That it was chaired by Nomsa Chabedi, very respected communicator and marketer, deputized by Tlengani Matebula, who's the head of communication for SARS. So it's stuff that I'm proud we've done. It's good work. In fact, not only did I leave it there when Minister Mutami didn't do anything about that report, but actually send it to her predecessors, Minister Dlodlo and Minister Kubai.
Her successors.
Her successors. Who received it well, and hopefully they'll consider implementing it. Also with the new minister, who unfortunately I haven't sent to her. So it was also something that was, in my view, a frivolous thing. Yes, it was business. Yes, Chris, I did bill for it as a part of a secretariat because it was not charity work. It was work that was meant to be in business. Now, I've got lots of clients, and like Chris has, who we advise on various communication things. One of the conditions of working for those clients is not that I can't express dissatisfaction with some or other aspect of their life or operation in society. So I didn't understand what the link is between saying that this is horror. I did not even put the full commentary. All I say was this was a horror story. I didn't say I didn't know about it. I didn't say that somehow I was surprised or anything of that nature.
Beyond the task team,
where the link is. Sorry.
Beyond the task team, JJ, what?
Yes, I was a convener of the task team. My company was a secretariat to the task team.
Yeah, I'm saying beyond that, the work that you did with the task team that you had assembled. Did you offer more advisory role? Did you play more of an advisory role to the minister?
As part of the task team. In fact, I involved a number of members of the task team on other advisory things. But the minister had many advisors. I mean, I'm sure she had about maybe 5 or 6 advisors around her. I was not the primary advisor. My primary work in that 1 year that I was linked to that ministry was to convene the task team, develop proposals, make sure that my team supports the committees and so on. I'm not ashamed of that work at all.
Okay, let me see this. Chris, it seems to me that what JJ's, or at least the way I read that comment, the tweet when I saw it, is that he was reacting to what he was hearing about the nature, the relationship between Phumla Williams and the minister, and which I think most of us will agree it was quite horrible to hear. So, to what extent then would JJ have been involved in that breakdown of that relationship?
Well, if JJ remembers well, GCiS refused to take part in this national task team. They refused to come to meetings. They refused to play any role at all because their concern was that Mutambi was setting up an alternative communications think tank whose role was precisely to destroy GCiS. And let's not forget what was going on in 2014 and 2015. State capture was rampant, right? And Mutambi has emerged since several years ago as a key person in that state capture process. And I think that it was pretty clear what the objective was. It was to try and break down an existing communication structure which was neutral and to put in place something which was probably account more closely to a political principle. And this is where I get concerned that, this sort of fake outrage 3 years later really feels very, very hollow, and a kind of naivety about what was being done at the time. And I mean, JJ, he was getting paid to do this work. As far as I know, every other member of that 50-member task team was doing voluntary work. His agenda was set by the minister. He might have been advising her, but he was doing her work for her. And I don't accept this sort of neat little sidestep that says, I'm a businessman and was just doing my job, and it was a very nice project, and I'm trying to sell it to other politicians as well. It was part of the state capture process. It was intended to develop a government communications machine. It was not what GCiS was.
JJ, what was the interaction with GCiS from your point of view with the task team?
Obviously, the task team had a task to review GCiS, which Chris knows has been inefficient. Everybody knows that GCiS, by the time Jimmy Manye left, it was
Oh dear. JJ, just move around a little bit there.
Yeah, I'm saying the task team. Can you hear me now, TT?
Yeah, that's better. Yeah.
Yeah, the task team had the responsibility to review GCiS and whether it works well, to review Brand South Africa, to review all the other structures reporting to the minister. So the fact that they were not excited about a review is to be expected. But actually, if you look at the report itself, which I'm not sure whether Chris has ever seen, right? It says strengthen GCiS. It gives advice about how to make GCiS more effective. Things that Muthambi didn't bother to implement. That can be my fault, right? I think that Chris is coming with a mentality that says, keep quiet or ever hold your peace because you used to work there. I think that's ridiculous. Okay. The reality is he's the only one who resigned from that task team of over 50 people, professionals like Nomsa Chabedi, who he tried to go and besmirch at his company to say your task team is coming after DSTV and multi-choice is going to disrupt your agenda. That's what he is doing. He's not telling you that now. Chris, right? The reality is that over 50 of those professionals who are today can vouch for the work that they did, because remember there were 12 subcommittees. Right. They had to do their own work. GCiS eventually had to cooperate one way or another because they looked at that report. The DG of communication who was acting at that time called us in on one or two occasions to come and present the draft report before we finalize the report. So I'm not surprised that at that point people in the GCiS may not have wanted to cooperate, but that was not my problem. My problem was simple. Review how government communication is working. Look at whether they've implemented task recommendations. And again, TT, I'm not ashamed of that work. I don't expect Chris to agree with me.
Yeah, Chris, but you were part of the task team. You had no problem being roped into the task team. So where did the problem come in?
The problem came in it was a complete waste of time. And I mean, we went to countless meetings which either never curated or never happened, or JJ's admin people never arrived to take minutes. I mean, it just became a complete waste of time. That's why I left. But
but you're the only one that left. It's a bit strange, Chris, that you're the only one who left. It seems like you were being a little bit petulant, maybe.
Well, you might think I'm petulant. I'm just being honest about what I saw and what I heard.
Yeah.
And I've been waiting for JJ to kind of flip that into some ulterior motive. I just think if you look at the psychological horror that Phumla Williams spoke about at the Zondo Commission, and you look at how she talks about what Muthambi did to her and to other people like Brent Simons and other GCiS employees who hounded out, to then turn around and say, what a horror story, as if you had absolutely nothing to do with it, is disingenuous to say the least.
JJ, would you say you would?
No, I had nothing to do with the relationship between.
I got that. Let me put the question. I was going to say, were you inadvertently through this task team roped into, as what Chris is calling a state capture project here?
No, that's nonsense, and Chris knows that. It's absolute nonsense. The reality is, my job was to lead a task team together with Nomsa and Matebula that will assess the state of government communications in shambles. And the report is there. If Chris wants a copy, I'm happy to give it to him. Those professionals have done a good job and a sterling job that any Minister of Communication who looks at that report doesn't even have to go another mode. They can take those recommendations and implement them. Phumla Williams herself can attest that I had nothing to do with her relationship with the minister because our task team was not operational. It was not taking over any tasks of GCiS. It was simply assessing. It was meeting and coming up with recommendations, debating those recommendations, meeting people like Sanek, who were very good with their time with us, meeting various heads of communications who gave off their time. And frankly, we did a good job, and I think that anybody can remember that. To try and implicate me in some sort of state capture is nonsense. Chris knows this. I'm not sure why he's doing this.
Chris, have you seen the report?
No, and I don't want to. I mean, I can't imagine what value it's added. Certainly the two work streams that I was in over a period of 9 months, the output was absolutely zero. I don't know about the other 11. The one plenary session I went to, only I think 4 of the 12 task teams reported back. You know, it was very amateurish, I must say. I'm not interested in seeing the report. I'm interested in JJ explaining how many articles he wrote for Faith Muthambi and why he used to describe himself as an advisor to Faith Muthambi, which he seems to be kind of sort of downplaying.
All right,
I've never referred to myself as an advisor to Faith Muthambi. I was appointed for a particular job, which was to lead a group of communicators who wanted to contribute in terms of how to improve government communication.
Did you write? Hang on, just hang on, Chris. Just hang on, Chris.
I
Just hang on. Whoa. Gentlemen.
I'm a ghostwriter. I don't discuss who I write for. Maybe Chris goes around telling people that he wrote articles for them.
All right. So you're not going to enter into whether or not you did write.
Why should I do that? I'm a ghostwriter. I don't say who I'm a ghost for. Chris doesn't do that.
Is that the practice? That's the practice, Chris. It's not unusual, is it?
I don't do ghostwriting, so I wouldn't know. But
that's not true, Chris. You do ghostwriting. It's not true.
And certainly not for Faith Mutambi, that's for sure.
No, it's not true. Please don't lie on radio.
You either do it or you don't, Chris.
I know in this profession, we ghostwrite for many people in this country.
But it's not unheard of. It's not unheard of, is it, Chris? It's not unheard of.
It's not unheard of. But I mean, why is JJ okay saying that he... Well, I mean, he came up with the idea of the national type thing. Let's not forget that. It didn't appear out of thin air. He convened it. He did work for the minister. That's all. That's my point. He worked.
Yeah, and I'm proud of that work, Chris.
All right.
Because you're wondering. I'm proud of that work, and that work can be used to improve government communications in this country.
All right, guys, let's pick this up over a beer or a cup of coffee sometime. I gotta go. I got a show to do. Thank you, Chris.
No,
Thank
Chris
you,
is
JJ.
silly, man.
Thank you, Chris.
What did you say?
Thank you, Chris.
What did JJ just say?
He says you're silly, I think. Is that what you said, JJ?
Bye-bye.
All right, let's leave it there, gentlemen. It's deteriorating now. Thank you very much to both gentlemen. Unfortunately, we have other things to do, horribly late as it is anyway, and I do apologize for overrunning. I wanted to wrap it up.
Power 98.7.